G'day gang! It is time for another Gummy Voice Show. And what are we going to talk about on this Gummy Voice Show? We are going to talk about World of Warcraft, because that's what I talked about last Gummy Voice Show, and I didn't get even close to enough time to talk about the things that I wanted to talk about, the things that now currently fascinate me about the game that I enjoy. So last episode, I covered the subject of being an emergency anthropologist, and basically the short, in a nutshell version, I studied anthropology at Mac. I did not become an anthropologist, but you know, in a post-apocalyptic situation, I might be the closest thing a group of survivors have to an anthropologist, and should some emergency situation arise that requires an anthropologist, well, it might very, well, come on me to fulfill that role. And maybe you went to school for something, you studied something in university, and you found your career path took you somewhere completely different. But you might be the emergency geologist of a group of people. You studied geology, but you didn't become a geologist, and so that's the emergency thing. That's why it's good to get an education, because getting an education just gives you more options in life. So what are we talking about? So World of Warcraft. I've been playing the game, basically studying the culture of the game, and because I had played it for so many years as a PvE player, and for those who watch my channel who don't play video games, that's player versus environment. There were two aspects of the game I never really explored, which was role-playing, which is the Moonguard server where I am now. Is a role-play server. I discussed role-playing and their culture. I didn't go into too great. I mean, I could fill a book with the stuff I'm learning from you guys. You're amazing. I absolutely love being on Moonguard. Wonderfully talented, creative, interesting group of people playing on that server. And I'm sure the other role-play servers, they might not have the same population as Moonguard, but I bet you every role-play server is just filled with creative, talented people. Excuse me, a little thirsty. So I touched on the things, some of the things that I've been finding fascinating about studying the role-play culture. The other gaming culture, which I didn't really partake in when I was a PvE player, is called PvP. And for those who don't play video games, that means player versus player. And there's a number of different player versus player mechanics in the game. But the one I've been playing is literally just random battlegrounds, right? You queue up for a random battleground, and everyone else who's queued up in your bracket, in theory, you duke it out over. Usually there's an objective to it. You got to capture carts or flags or what else is there? Yeah, that's about it. You capture bases and stuff like that, turn the flags and whatnot. Oh man, the gummy's kicking in good. So yeah, that PvP, right? It's sort of battlegrounds, random battlegrounds is what it is. Now, I did play PvP as a PvE player on the server, but it was literally only something I did when I was bored of playing everything else in the game. So I'd do a random battleground, and I'd usually get stomped because I didn't really know the objectives that well of the battlegrounds, not as well as the people who played it a lot. I didn't know the strategies. I didn't know how to be a rogue in PvP. But it was just, it's a random battleground. Nobody really cares that much. So you do it randomly. You get your arse stumped, and then you don't you don't do it again until the next time. The next time you're thoroughly bored with running dailies and stuff like that, then you do a random battleground. I can remember leveling up my main back in vanilla before the Burning Crusade even came out. That's how long I've been playing this game. I remember queuing for battlegrounds the same way as I was leveling up my character. And it took a long time to level a character back then. Modern WoW, it slingshots you into they want you in the end game. They don't want you wasting your time with all the old stuff. They want you in the current expansion doing the current stuff, and they get you there as quickly as possible now. And you can even just pay to get a little token that'll just take you right to the end game, get you started on the way they officially want you to play the game is to get into the end game. So I was doing random battlegrounds when I was leveling up my main, which was a rogue Chibi-Su, and I named her Chibi-Su. Those who are familiar with my old comic will remember I had a character named Chibi-Su, and when I got the game World of Warcraft, I was like, oh my god, these gnome females, they look just like the Chibi-Su character from my comic strip. So of course I rolled a gnome female named Chibi-Su, and that's how I played the game for years. And when I was leveling up Chibi-Su, that was doing the random battlegrounds. That was where I first encountered Twinks. And what is a twink? Because we all know what it is at the gay bar, right? We all know that definition of twink. So what the hell is a twink in PvP in the game? Well, it was originally used as a slur, right? They were called twinks. It was basically just a way for them to get away with calling you faggot in the game, was to call you a twink, right? And people hated the twinks and complained about the twinks, and the twinks curb stomped them into the ground. I still haven't got to exactly what a twink is, but I hope I've explained. There was a lot of animosity towards them by the general player base, and that animosity created a lot of misconceptions about what twinks actually are, and what the players who play twinks actually are. And so a twink is officially it's called min-maxing, where you make a small character as tough as you can make it. So twinks will take a character and they'll stop leveling it, right? You can turn your experience points off in the game, so your character will not progress to the next levels. And twinks would take the XP off their characters and freeze them at a level. So each bracket is in groups of 10. PvP starts when you reach level 10. And so there's a bracket for 10 to 19, 20 to 29, 30 to 39. And you usually call it, the teens, they usually call it the 19s bracket. Then they start calling it level 20 bracket, level 30 bracket and stuff like that, or the 30s bracket or that. There's been a little bit of a change in the terminology that some of them have been using now, which I'll get to in a bit. This is probably going to be a very long video, and I don't know that I'm going to get through all of this video tonight, because this is the subject that's fascinated me the absolute most about the way I'm playing World of Warcraft now. It's as awesome and inspiring as it has been to study the role play side of this game. And like I said, those Pukum Hura videos I make, they're like my love letter to the players of this game that I've played and enjoyed for so long. The players on Moonguard role play, and to the Twinks as well. So Twinks, it's all about maximizing the potential of characters in lower level brackets, right? Holding a character there. So as you can imagine, when you get into a battleground with a Twink, the Twinks are a devastating force of power. And the battleground is often, and nowadays exclusively, won by the side that has the most Twinks. And so, oh wow, this gummy's really kicking in. I don't know if I can even get through this subject tonight. So, what have I talked about so far? I don't know. Oh man. So yeah, Twinks. Twinks was what they were called. Officially, you would say, min-maxer, but Twinks are also an example of people reclaiming a word, right? The Twinks basically took that slur and said, yeah, I'm a Twink, and I'm the Twink that's stomping your face into the ground, so it really doesn't matter what you call me, And so they call them, they self-identify as Twinks, right? There will be some that will say they're a min-maxer, but by and large, most Twinks self-identify as Twink, which is kind of interesting. It's not really an insult in and of itself to them. So it used to be that there has been a huge change to how PvP works in the game. And this change has been rather devastating to the Twink community. It has seriously had a huge impact on that community. And so the interesting thing about that is a lot of Twinks, if you ask them about the recent changes, they'll have very, very strong opinions on it. And not too many of them are in favor of what's happened to the bracket right now. But for me, and this is going to sound really shitty, I think, but for me it's very interesting in that for about a year or more, I can't remember, if you watch the Pook videos, there'll be a video where like some of the videos I'm playing PvP, right? And I'm trying to do it in character. And that's why there's not many of those videos, because it's very hard to improvise banter as the Pook while I'm laser focused on objectives and stuff like that. It gets really those are the hardest videos I've had to make on this channel, are the ones where I'm in character in PvP. That's pretty hard to do. At least for me, it is. So, oh man, I'm getting all over the place. Whoa. So yeah. So For a little over a year, I've been studying the culture of Twinks, and there wasn't all that big a difference between PvP in the 20s brackets when I leveled up Chibi Sue and PvP in the level 20 brackets leveling up the Pook. And that was kind of interesting. And then just recently, just before, I can't remember how many months before Dragonflight, Blizzard made a huge change to the way PvP in this bracket works. And they've destroyed a culture in the process, or are in the act of destroying a culture in the process. And one of the main reasons I didn't want to pursue a career in anthropology, even though cultural anthropology fascinates me, is just when you're studying another culture, you know, you're studying everything about that culture, and a lot of cultures that anthropologists study are indigenous cultures, and you gotta have some sort of magical heart armor to study cultures that have run into colonial forces, and you know what they have suffered. And I tap out, right? I would tap out. I do not have that ability. So you know that's why cultural anthropology didn't really interest me, or it interests me, but not as a career. But now you can study virtual cultures, so it does make it a little easier to build that heart armor up, because World of Warcraft isn't real, you know, but the cultures in them, those virtual cultures, are still real. But whatever problems the members of those cultures have in World of Warcraft are pale in comparison to whatever problems they may have in the real world, right? And ultimately, World of Warcraft changing its PvP won't really, hopefully, have too big an impact on how they deal with their problems in the real world, right? Yeah, did I make myself clear? I have no idea, because I am trying to have a serious scholarly discussion about something while under the effects of marijuana, because I'm very curious about how marijuana works, so anyways, where was I in this discussion? Yeah, so basically I'm watching the death of a culture, but it's a virtual culture, and I know the ephemeral nature of the internet. I mean, all cultures die eventually. There is no culture on this planet that still exists as it did back in the days, you know, when Homo habilis was making stone tools, right? You know, back in the days before humans were even humans. You know, there's degrees to which cultures change, and technology is something that really drives cultural change. And our culture changes so quickly that, you know, it becomes a stranger to people living in, right? that they can see the changes in the culture, and this, for some people, these changes delight them, and for some people, these changes scare the living shit out of them. but virtual cultures, right? Virtual cultures is what we're getting at. Nothing changes faster than the internet, and it used to be said that once it's on the internet, it's there forever, and that's not even close to true. We are losing so much of our cultural history due to the ephemeral nature of the internet, and you might say, oh well, there's the Wayback Machine stuff. Like, no, it's not even coming close to scratching the surface of how much information we're losing because of how ephemeral the internet is. So video games come and go all the time, and it's hard to imagine that a game as big as World of Warcraft could ever disappear. Eventually all cultures come to an end. Real life cultures come to an end, and virtual cultures come to an end. And they end through evolution because they evolve into another culture, basically, right? And so it's not so much that, it's except for in very extreme cases, it doesn't end just because of a sudden death of everyone. It's usually that just evolves over time into another culture. So I understand that internet cultures will die much faster, and somehow that lessens the pain of studying them as a culture. So yeah, I'm studying Twinks. I believe I have explained a bit about the history of Twinks. I've explained where the term Twinks comes from. I've explained my pre-Pukamhura experience with Twinks, and now I'm going to get into my Pukamhura experience with Twinks, studying them as a culture. Like with role players, where the stereotype is they're weirdos without a grasp on reality, right? Which, when you actually start studying them, that you find out, no, that's not even close. They're just wonderfully, brilliantly creative people, and enjoying playing a game as a creative outlet. The same is true with Twinks. Twinks, the common misconception. This is literally what, if you asked people who play World of Warcraft and have encountered a twink, what is a twink? Almost universally, they will probably say a twink is a loser who cannot cut it in endgame, and so they make a super powerful character so they can beat the crap out of low-B characters and feel good about themselves. That is the common misconception. That's what most people describe Twinks as, because they're very frustrated when they're in a battleground and their side does not have as many Twinks as the other side. And so it's very easy to blame the Twinks for you're getting curb stomped, and then seeing Twinks as nothing but losers, right? Losers who beat on low-level players. And there are some people like that who are Twinks. I will not lie. I call them the what's his name? Crumbopulous Michaels from Rick and Morty. The hitman who will kill anyone, anywhere, doesn't care, just loves killing, right? There are not an insignificant number of Crumbopulous Michaels that are Twinks, and all they want to do is stomp on lobies, basically. But they're pretty small. And it doesn't even come close to recognizing the motives that most people have for becoming a twink, right? Because a lot of twinks, when you actually talk to them, why did you become a twink, right? You get to know these twinks instead of complaining because I'm getting curb stomped in the battlegrounds by horde twinks. And so, you know, get to know these twinks. Find out why did you become a twink, because twinks know they're hated. They know they have no illusions about how the majority of players of World of Warcraft views them. And they became a twink anyways. And a lot of times when you talk to them and they tell you what was it that made them become a twink, and it was because they were curb stomped by a twink, and they were like, I'm coming back, and I'm going to keep coming back until I put that guy face down in the mud. That is honestly the reason why most people who I've spoken to. Now remember, my evidence is entirely anecdotal. As I said in the previous video, this is not a real anthropological field research, because if I was to do that, the effort to dopamine would no longer pay off for me, right? It would no longer pay off. I wouldn't enjoy it, is what the honest to God, honest truth answer is. So my evidence is anecdotal. But of the twinks I've spoken to, the vast majority of them have basically relayed a story about getting curb stomped by a twink and wanting to come back and curb stomp that twink, and that more than just, oh, I want to crush lobies, is really what drove most of them that I've spoken to into becoming twinks, which I thought was, wow, isn't that a much more interesting reality than the general misconception of twinks as losers that just want to stomp lobies into the ground. That was amazing, right? And that's why people get into studying cultures and stuff like that, to blow the doors off misconceptions. It's awesome to learn, when you were wrong about something. And I got to say, I was honestly of the same opinion, that the majority of people had, that these twinks were just, guys that wanted to bully lobies, and it's not like that at all. And so that was something that was interesting. Now, there was a really interesting dynamic to level 20, the level 20 bracket PvP. Now, why am I in the level 20 bracket PvP right now as a Pukamura? It's because because the Pook is a free-to-play character, and she can't get past level 20. She is stuck at the very bottom level of the level 20 bracket. And so, oh wow, this Gummy is really kicking my arse tonight, gang. Jeez. what the hell? Oh, yeah. There was a really, how long have I been talking? There was a really interesting dynamic in the level 20 bracket when I first started playing PvP as the Pook. And the one interesting thing about World of Warcraft's trial account, which is technically the game doesn't have free to play. The game has a trial. It's just a trial. It's just to wet your whistle and make you want to play World of Warcraft. And boy, does it fail at that. Oh my gosh, when you actually play it and study it and analyze what they're doing, oh my god. But that's not the focus of my thing, is to get into things like that. But yeah, so oh man, I'm crashing hard tonight, I can tell. So man. Yeah, so there was an interesting class system. There was a really, really interesting class system that was created because the free-to-plays characters have a lot of restrictions on them. They are severely gimped compared to the other players. So you had the free-to-plays in the 20s. You had people playing on the trial account. You had levelers. Now, a leveler, in the language of Twinks, is someone they're a tourist, right? They are a tourist to the level 20s. They're passing through, coming through on their way to the magical land of Endgame, where everything is better. And the levelers, a lot of them will constantly tell you how everything is better, right? and when you get to, oh, this is the worst PvP bracket ever. And, you know, Endgame is so much better than this. And then you had Twinks. And Twinks come in two forms, which I call Daddy Twinks and Baby Twinks. And most of the Twinks you used to see in a PvP bracket would be Baby Twinks. And what is the difference between a daddy twink and a baby twink? You might be asking me, if, you know, honestly, if you stuck around this long, which, yeah, I doubt it, because I've been babbling like an idiot for quite a while. But what is the difference between a daddy twink and a baby twink? And the thing is, a baby twink is a free-to-play level 20 twink, and a daddy twink is, they've turned XP off and they are level 29. They are the most they can go in that bracket without going to the next bracket above. So when a twink was in a battleground, most of the time you saw a twink, they were a baby twink, a free-to-play twink, and not an XP off, because Blizzard had a system so that if your XP was off, you went into your own queues, so you only went into battlegrounds with other people who had their XP off. Getting dry mouth from the gummy. That's the one thing I dislike, is the dry mouth. It's quite annoying. So, man, I'm talking about levelers and free to play and Twinks. Okay, so the baby Twinks, daddy Twinks. So most of the time, you saw baby Twinks in the battlegrounds. You didn't see daddy Twinks. And there was ways for the daddy Twinks to get into the battlegrounds, and sometimes the daddy Twinks would get into the battlegrounds. And oh man, there's some really, really fascinating stuff about that. When I'll get to that later. It's so most of the Twinks that you saw in the battleground were baby Twinks. They were level 20 free to plays. And you would think that, oh, what's the point, right? You're level 20 and you're playing in a bracket where, the levelers are going to be going through, yeah, maybe you'll beat them when they're level 20, but by the time they're level 25 and stuff, they'll be able to absolutely curb stomp you. And but no, these guys had really kitted out their level 20s with gear that made them very, very formidable to a leveler that had actually leveled gear while passing through the level 20 bracket, because you would be surprised at how often people would level through the 20 bracket without gear, right? They'd have empty gear slots, and it makes sense from their perspective as someone who's trying to get to the end game, because there's no point in spending the time to grind your gear good enough to beat someone who's level 20, right? Like this time tomorrow, I'm going to be coming out of the level 40 bracket, right? It's like, it takes no time at all in World of Warcraft to get to the end of the game, right? So the levelers do not put in, well, not all. Some levelers take their PvPs very seriously along the way, but most levelers, they don't, and they don't put any effort into their gear leveling up, because come this time tomorrow, that gear is going to be all obsolete anyway. So why should you put any effort into getting good gear if you're in the end game that fast? So as a result, baby Twinks were super formidable, and only a few levelers were able to do anything about it. Plus, there was a level squish in the game, and it gave some baby Twinks access to things that they wouldn't have otherwise. But those Twinks are kind of like a rare oddity. It's they're a magical unicorn, basically. They're not typical of Twinks. What the hell am I even talking about? So the baby Twinks could beat the crap out of the a lot of the levelers, right? And then you had as well in the battleground, there were just people that had a free-to-play tune, like pretty much me, had a free-to-play tune and just wanted a very casual battleground experience. And as long as you decently armored your character up, you were a contributing member. Yeah, you might get free shot by someone where before you got one shot by them, but you didn't have to apply yourself as much to the gear before the big change happened. So you had people like basically like me in the game, sort of casually geared, casually playing, not taking it too seriously. So those sort of three groups coming together, it created a tense kind of situation, and it was really against the levelers and the Twinks, and Daddy Twinks as well got sort of dragged into it. And it's because typically speaking, if your XP is off, you can't get into the same queue that the free-to-play players and levelers got into. But if you're queued with a leveler or a free-to-play, you then get into those battlegrounds, right? And so Daddy Twinks would, because as a free-to-play character, you can't create a party and invite people to join your party. You can only be invited into a party. So a Daddy Twink would be used to create a party, and then the Daddy Twink would make one of the baby Twinks the leader of the party, and the Daddy Twink would quit the party. And that was a way that free-to-play, the baby Twinks could create their own pre-mades, a pre-made group going into the battlegrounds together. And a pre-made of baby Twinks back then was what determined the battleground. If you were up against 10-man pre-made group of baby Twinks, you're done. It doesn't matter if any of the levelers took their gear seriously in this meaningless bracket. You're done, right? You just can't overcome. The math is not on your side. And so I understand why levelers were very upset with Twinks. When you got into a battleground where the Daddy Twink didn't leave the party after creating it, you really saw, it's the hammer of God coming down on the battleground. When the Daddy Twinks were there, they could rip up the battleground with impunity. It was awesome to behold, honestly. Even when it was you're the one in the graveyard being camped, the power of these guys was something else, right? And because there's this social nature to World of Warcraft, players form friendships and guilds and stuff like this, and guilds form alliances and rivalries with other guilds and stuff like this. The use of Daddy Twinks in the battlegrounds was semi-self-regulated, and this was the part that absolutely fascinated me the most when I started studying Twinks, was right the issue of the Daddy Twinks getting in with the baby Twinks. What happens then? And there was a misconception that a lot of the baby Twinks created baby Twinks just because they didn't want to pay for World of Warcraft to subscribe to it. That's, man, the amount of WoW tokens Twinks will buy is just utterly insane, and a huge number of baby Twinks had a subscribed account that they had their Daddy Twinks on as well. So it wasn't really to avoid paying the money. It was just more, they really liked being this lowly little level 20 who was hell on wheels, basically. Is to me what it seems like most of their motives were for making the baby twink. So yeah, the thing that fascinated me most was their community would sort of self-regulate. So there was almost like a code of chivalry with the Twinks, right? So if you're a daddy twink and you're in the battleground, was kind of expected you would only attack other daddy twinks, right? And you would only attack a baby twink, a casual or a leveler, only if they were going to score an objective, right? Otherwise, you look for your opposite number on the field of battle, and you go against them. That was kind of an honor system that a lot of the twinks I talked to discussed. And as well, the daddy twinks would usually take sort of a leadership role in the combat, right? And there were daddy twinks that would basically they took their role in the battlegrounds to almost like it reminded me very much when I was in the army of my instructors in the army, right? And they would take this sort of leadership role of training the casuals and levelers and stuff like this on how to play PvP in this bracket. And I have seen twinks like that discipline their own team when their team's not listening to them, right? When they're not learning and not understanding. I have seen a daddy twink, sit down in the middle of a battleground that our side was winning and let our side lose, right? Because, and when you talk to them afterwards about, what was that? What were you doing there? And it's like, well, I'm trying to explain to these people that are clearly, green as hell about this bracket's PvP. I'm trying to teach them. They're thinking they're doing great, and they're not realizing they're only doing great because I'm a daddy twink and I'm protecting them, right? I'm trying to teach them, and I'm protecting them, teaching them. They're not learning. I'm out. I'm sitting down. I'm not getting involved anymore, and we lose the battleground. And I thought that was very fascinating, because it is a lot of daddy twinks found their role in when they were in a battleground with levelers and baby twinks and then noobs like I was. They found their role to be protector and educator. And the biggest headbutting would happen between daddy twinks and levelers that were passing through. And it was because when you're a twink and you live in this bracket, you learn a bracket inside and out. And because the amount of time spent in each bracket leveling now is so much shorter than it was when the game started, levelers literally are tourists to every PvP bracket they pass through. They'll be at endgame in no time at all, and things that work in endgame don't work in random battlegrounds in the 20 brackets. Some things do, some things don't. And I've seen a lot of arguments back in the days when we still played with levelers, break out between levelers that aren't understanding the realities of this bracket they're in, and the realities of the makeup of the battleground that we're in. Get into an argument with a twink and who's been living in this bracket since some of them since vanilla, and they know what this bracket is, and it just reminds me so much of that when you're going through GMT and you got some guy who thinks he knows it all, because he's got a brother who was a soldier, and he's seen a lot of movies and stuff like that, and when they ignore a non-com, and then you see it come back to bite them on the ass, right? And their instructor will with a certain amount of glee and ire explain exactly why they got bit on the ass for not listening to what they were told to do, right? And I saw that a lot going on, where levelers would just out and out ignore the advice of the daddy twinks in the battleground and lose, and then blame it on the twinks and not on their own inability to understand that this bracket doesn't fight the way the other bracket does. So it was really interesting to see this interaction between very casual players like myself, baby twinks who took it seriously but were playing with the same sort of handicaps that the casuals like me had, but overcoming them spectacularly, and the levelers going through, and then the daddy twinks, and the daddy twinks rarely came into it because of the mechanisms that were in place to keep them out, but when they did, that really fascinated me, because then it was like all these groups coming together, and I got to see how they interacted and affected with each other. And it was really, really interesting studying this and learning this. And like I said, this code of honor that I had no idea existed with the daddy twinks. And I can remember daddy twinks basically asking you, let me know if so-and-so is in the battlegrounds, right? And they would basically put a bounty on another daddy twink. And if they found out this other daddy twink was playing the battlegrounds, next thing you know, they're logging in on their daddy twink, and they're making a party with you, and you're going out to hunt the bounty, and stuff like that just fascinated the heck out of me. It was so interesting to study. And then just I can't remember how many months, there's a Pukamahura video that I made not long after the switch happened, where Blizzard has made a change to the way battlegrounds work now, and now levelers are in their own queue. All they'll ever see are other levelers. Free-to-play players, the trial account players, and XP off are in the same queues together. So now Daddy Twinks and Baby Twinks are in the same queues no matter what, and sort of casual players, free to play players, people who are legitimately have no idea what World of Warcraft PvP is like, and they're wondering, oh, should I buy it? Let me try it out on this trial account. Those people who know absolutely nothing, complete noobs, and are all in the same queue. It's free to play and XP off are in their own queue, levelers in their own queue. So the levelers have been taken out of the equation. And what have I learned from this? I learned that I had, before the levelers were taken out of the equation, it was very difficult for me in a battleground to figure out how many of the free-to-play players were just people who wanted to try the game out and see what it is. Because I wouldn't have a way of knowing if these names that I like, because you learn who the Twinks are if you're stuck in this bracket, right? You know who to listen to and you know who not to. You know who's full of shit and who's not. You kind of know who all the Twinks are, right? And sometimes you know, and sometimes it's just scuttlebutt. But it's you know who all the Twinks are if you're stuck there. But when we were with the levelers, I would just see all these names that were I'd never see again, right? Because the next day they're no longer in the 20s brackets, they're in the 30 bracket, right? You level so fast, they're just coming and going. They're just so you don't really learn their names. And then every now and then, one of them would recognize you. So every now and then I'd be playing, and a leveler would say, "Oh, Pook! Oh, hey! I remember you from the last time I was passing through this bracket." You know. So you'd get, sometimes you'd get the people who leveled a lot of alts seeing you again and again. And they were always the good players, like, because they understood that this PvP bracket doesn't play the same as an endgame does. And so you have to adjust your tactics for the battleground you've got. And so I always knew that if I ran into levelers that knew me, that okay, we're going to have a fighting chance this battleground, right? This guy knows what this bracket is like, because he's played it enough to recognize me, even though he's just leveling endgame alts like crazy. Because you meet a lot of people, a lot of levelers like that. There's some people that's the game for them, is just to level alts, and that's kind of fascinating. I have a hard time just keeping track of one character, you know. So I've never been too big on alts. I've been contemplating adding new characters as alts to Pukamura's videos, but I don't know that I'll do that. Anyways, that's not the topic we're talking about. We're talking about the Twinks. So I have no idea what I was last talking about. But the Twinks, so now it's, free to play and Daddy Twinks are in the same bracket. And that created a huge change to the game, because it's suddenly this sort of self-regulating body that they had put in place to control Daddy Twinks when they were in the same battlegrounds as the baby Twinks, had completely broken apart, right? Because Daddy Twinks were such a rarity in the pre-segregation split, right? Where Blizzard basically segregated levelers to their own queues and then segregated free to play and level off, XP off to their own bracket. So the changes is it meant that the self-regulating mechanism that their culture had built into the game suddenly broke down, right? Because Daddy Twinks are just going to be a fact of life, right? And what it's taught me since this happened is there were nowhere near as many people using the trial account and then going into the leveling experience. I thought there would be. So most of the people that I saw at level 20 were just levelers already going there, not people just trying the game to see if it's fun. Because the people that were playing, because you don't see that many noobs anymore in the battlegrounds, as he used to be before, when we were with the levelers. It's not often you'll get someone in PvP who has empty gear slots. They might have shitty gear, but that's kind of gone down a bit. And the other thing is, because it's now Daddy Twinks versus Baby Twinks. Level 20 Twinks are they're obsolete, really. As a unit, they're obsolete, almost. They still have uses, very support. Like there's still some baby Twinks who are healers that command respect, but a lot of the 20s are gone now just because they're obsolete, and it hasn't changed though the numbers. What changed is because almost every baby Twink before the segregation had an XP off level 29 Twink as well in reserve, right? And oh my God, the very first, as the moment that happened, the night it happened, I remember that night, it was absolutely insane. You had all these baby Twinks grabbing their level 29 Twink and hitting the battlegrounds, right? And it was absolutely insane mayhem and carnage as everyone's trying out their 29s, right? It was amazing, and the queues were popping like this because people who had given up on twinking had heard about this and were like, oh, I got to go check this out, right? And so it was for a couple of weeks absolutely insane, and I was getting constantly one-shotted by everyone, and baby Twinks. Like I wasn't a baby Twink, right? I had some gear, but it was mostly the Pandaren gear that you can buy, right? The Pandaren PvP gear, and so I had almost no gear. I was very casual about how I played, but I was always 100% committed, right? To getting whatever the objectives of the game are, right? I give it everything I got. My gear might be shit, but you know, I never slack off in the battlegrounds. And what the hell was I talking about? Oh man, I don't think anybody's watching this still. Oh, geez, man, I gotta watch it when I edit it, eh? So, you know, it was something to behold. It was something to behold when this big change happened, and it was just this glorious, gory battle fest like you would not believe, and it at first seemed like this is going to breathe an entirely new life into this community, because all these people that have been parking a 29 are going to go into it with their 29s, and you know, it's going to bring a whole new life to it. So, but it didn't. And what happened is, once this initial sort of euphoria wore off, a lot of the people who used to have baby Twinks that used to play always in that bracket, just found their 20, it wasn't really doing it for them the way they thought it would. And the reason why, I think, is it was just, it meant something to have a level 20 character that could kick a level 29 character's ass, right? A leveler who is level 29, I can kick his ass and I'm only level 20. That meant something. Whereas being level 29 and being able to kick a level 20's ass, that doesn't really mean anything. And so it has now really boiled down to the fact that the level... Oh man, the gummy is kicking in so hard now, gang. I'm really struggling to maintain a coherent story. This is providing me with interesting data on how the marijuana is affecting me, but it's definitely, I would never give a scholarly lecture while stoned. That would not work well at all. So yeah, I gotta remember, basically, yeah, the level, they found that basically being a daddy twink no longer meant anything to them, right? And so it was just the side with the most, if you were level 20, you were almost, but not entirely, but almost useless. And so it just went to whichever side had the most daddy twinks, and that side was the horde. There's a meme that you know, if you want to be a good PvP player, you can only be a good PvP player if you play on the horde, and that horde wins all the battlegrounds, and Alliance can never win and stuff like this. Now I said my evidence is anecdotal, and it is, because I don't write anything. I'm not writing this stuff down, right? I'm not actually doing a study. But when it comes to do Horde win the battlegrounds more than Alliance, the game itself collects that data for me, and I can see Pukamura's PvP stats, and I can see how they shift and change, and what percentage of battlegrounds the Pook wins, and what percentage she loses. And what was I? Oh, this is a struggle. This is a struggle. Getting through this is a struggle. So I can see what percentage of the battlegrounds she wins and what percentage she loses. And the Horde do win more than the Alliance. But before the segregation happened, Horde won about 6% more often than Alliance. And now it's about 10% more often than Alliance. The Horde is winning. So it's not all that big a percentage, but it's a big enough that you do feel it. You do feel like, okay, if I want to be serious about this and be a twink, I've got to go to the Horde side. So because the battlegrounds have sort of come down to which side has the most daddy twinks on it, and just a lot of players have lost interest in what made twinking interesting to them. And so I know a lot of Alliance. There's one guild that accepted me as an honorary twink, even though I'm not one. And that was awesome, because I kind of felt like, like Diane Fossey when the Gorillas accepted her. It's like, wow, they've accepted me as one of their own. So that was nice. The Golden Twinkies is the guild's name. And they've mostly moved on to Wrath of the Lich King. They're really, really loving that now. And it's just they moved on to something else, and so now Alliance has very few daddy twinks, and then that 6% increase of wins for the Horde has now become 10%, and that does make it feel like you're losing a lot more often than you are. It does make it feel like you're losing it a lot more often than you are losing the game. So it reinforces this feeling that in order to play as a twink, you have to be a Horde. And because the Alliance daddy twinks have left the game, the Horde has no one left to fight, basically. And the queues have gotten ridiculous. Whereas before, if I was waiting 21 minutes before the segregation for a queue, I'd be like, this is a slow night. This is really, really slow. Now I've had queues of more than 3 hours. I've had nights where I've tried to play, and I'll be lucky if I can get 3 battlegrounds in that actually have, players. Because one of the annoying things is it'll pop your queue for a battleground before it's even tabulated if it has enough players for that battleground. And so you'll get into a battleground if either side has less than four or fewer players, it ends the game in 4 minutes. And yeah, you get a battleground and it pops, and it's 4 versus 7, and then it's like, this is just a waste of time. It's going to end in 4 minutes and you can't feel good if you're on the 7 side, right? Like, how am I supposed to feel good about this victory, right? I'm just literally curb stomping these people with no meaningful opposition, and so it's not a fun victory. It's basically a way for me as a free-to-play player, level 20, to feel the way Twinks felt about becoming Daddy Twinks and being that grossly overpowered for the bracket. And you can't feel good about your victories now. And so that's usually it used to be decided on a battleground would be decided by how many Twinks you had on your side, but the Twink bracket PvP has become so sparse now, sparsely populated. It's literally just decided by how many players you have now, because you managed to get 10 players on your side and the Horde had 5 players and none of them rage quit. So, you were able to win. And what's the point? I waited 2 hours in this queue to get that victory. Wow, awesome. I feel great about this game. And then imagine how it feels being on the other side too, because you get that more often with the Alliance than you do with the Horde, where it's we're the guys with 5 players and they've got 8, and depending on who their 5 and who our 8 are, or their 8 and who our 5 are, it's going to be a really hard battleground to win. And when that's what the queues are like, when that's what the game is like, it's a colossal waste of everyone's time. And so the Blizzard has killed off Twinks. Basically, they're not a big enough community in the game to support their own queues. And there are nowhere near enough people playing the trial account to fill the queues, right? The only way I can see this being resolved in a way that preserves this interesting culture that I've been studying, the only way I can see it being resolved is either Blizzard's got to do something to recognize that it's got this valuable culture of people playing its game that has been the victim of many misconceptions about who they are as players and what their motives are, and it's sort of given them permission to do what they're doing. They've been wanting to kill off this class of player. Rather than, what would make more sense would be recognizing them as a distinct virtual culture, and then finding how can we best serve that culture so they feel they have a place in this game. And that's what Blizzard needs to do, I think, to save this bracket. Because this bracket it's dying. It's bad. And I miss that. I miss, the battlegrounds. I miss learning all the things that this group of players have to teach me. And, it's very, very sad watching this culture disappear. And the way that would probably work best to preserve this culture would be for Blizzard to acknowledge it and then find a way to make them feel included and valued in the game. Because they actually do play a very valuable role. Just looking at the battlegrounds strictly from a tactical sort of assessment, the Twinks played a very valuable role as non-coms, basically. And levelers ignore the Twinks at your own peril, kind of thing. And, what I would suggest, and I'm loath to give suggestions because it's really outside the sort of bailiwick I've set for myself to study this culture. But what I would suggest is you need to find a way to lessen the divide between Daddy Twinks and Baby Twinks, so that it's the Baby Twinks can still perform a role. They can't be as obsolete as they are, because as soon as the Baby Twinks stopped playing, that's when the queues started dying. As soon as the people that didn't have a level locked 29 or didn't, or for whatever reason did not want to subscribe, as soon as the people that were playing for free, as soon as they felt completely obsolete, they left the game, and now there's not enough players to get a queue to pop with 10 versus 10 most nights. And so I would suggest finding some way to lessen the gap. Don't make the Baby Twinks as obsolete as they are. And I would even think the best solution might even be to end the segregation between the levelers and the Twinks, but to create a system that sort of gives the Twinks a role in the PvP. And I don't know how you do that exactly, but I would foster. I guess what I would do I would foster what I saw already developing in the community itself, the way they self-regulated the use of Daddy Twinks before the segregation happened. So like I said, suggesting the ways to fix it, not really my focus. But the other solution might be The Twink community itself, I mean, they could come up with their own charter, basically, for the community of regarding the use of daddy twinks, and make the 20 bracket about the baby twinks, and then define in that charter the role of daddy twinks in those battlegrounds. And basically what I was seeing happening before the segregation, relying on that in the hopes that it will make the people who were obsolete return to the game. Because as soon as there are not enough daddy twinks to sustain this game, this bracket. There's just not enough with level lock 29s, and so either something has to be done to make the level 20s not as obsolete, or hell, I guess the easiest damn solution would probably be to just have more twinks on the Alliance side. It's honest to God, if there might be enough Horde 29s that if we could just get more twinks to roll Alliance, it might save this bracket. In any case, I'm going to be with this bracket to study what happens to it. I don't know how much longer it's going to be viable as far as PvP goes, but I still got lots that the players can teach me. So I'll be there, and if you are a leveler, you could create a twink. You don't have to play them all the time, but just the same way as when I was a leveler, I would play PvP when I got bored and I had nothing better to do in this game, because you get sick of the lulls between the patches and running the same pointless dailies and grinding and all that crap that I'm so glad I've left behind me now. I used to play PvP when I was bored. So if you are a leveler, I would like to invite you to consider creating a twink, and put aside the misconception of twinks as being, the Crumbopulous Michaels that just want to stomp lobies, because this bracket is literally dying because there are not enough of those players, right, to sustain this bracket. If Crumbopulous Michaels were the majority of twinks, the 29 brackets would still be thriving. So if you are a leveler and you find yourself getting bored playing World of Warcraft, please consider, and this may sound self-serving, please consider, rolling a level 29 daddy twink and coming into the battleground and protecting the pook's ass, because it's nasty out there. It's not the fun, casual battleground experience it used to be. And if we can get more people rolling Alliance twinks, I think just that alone could keep the Horde twinks interested, because you're starting to see the horde Twinks disappearing now too. So it's not uncommon at all to have a battleground where neither side has more than 8 players. So yeah, and that's not viable. That can't last. That can't keep going on. So anyways, I think I have said everything I needed to say about Twinks for this video. I thought I'd have to split it into 2 parts, but instead I just talked for, geez Louise, I talked for an hour and 32 minutes. I am very sorry if you sat through an hour and 32 minutes of a stoned guy talking about World of Warcraft Twinks. But hey, way to go. That's impressive. Now we're going to do the jam. I don't know how well this is going to go. I have an idea in mind, but I don't know how well it's going to go because this gummy is kicking my ass tonight, gang. But we're going to try it. We're going to try it anyways. Okie dokie. What are we doing at the table? We're not at the table. We're at my messy desk. And what are we going to do at my messy desk today? We are going to do an experiment. We're going to see if I can learn how to use my Christmas present while stoned on a gummy. I think we can all attest, based on the length and rambling stupidity of my babble part of the show, that the gummy has taken effect. So now we are going to try to make some music using what my folks have got me for Christmas, because I shouldn't have to say that my videos are unsponsored, because nobody sponsors videos of channels with this low of a viewership, right? But I think YouTube has some "we will cause you grief if you don't say your videos are not sponsored," or sponsored, or something if they are. So this is not sponsored unless you want to consider my folks sponsors, because this is what their Christmas present was to me this year. It was a Nakai MPC Live. Now I am not familiar in the least with how, oh, isn't it a pretty little thing, how the MPC platform works. I've never owned one of their music production software or anything, right? I have no familiarity with this system at all. So we are going to see, can a guy with no familiarity use this thing? Where's the hell's the power supply? All right, we're going to see if a guy with no experience at all can find the power supply. Oh, what's this? Ah, here we go. It appears to just be a cable. All right, that looks good. All right, and where's it? Oh. Huh. 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 That's part of the power supply. But, huh. Well, gang, I guess we're not doing this. I guess we're not doing this. It seems that my Akai is missing the power supply. I know it has a battery on it, but I doubt it's going to be charged. Well, okay, so I'm going to have to give Long McQuaid a call, and they'll sort it out. I know they will. They're good guys. And we're going to do, we'll do the Akai MPC video on a future Gummy Voice show. Yeah, sorry to leave you off on a cliffhanger like that, but yeah, that's going to be the next Gummy Voice show. Then I'll go right into using this thing. All right, see you later. Oh hey, wait! I got a whole fun table of stuff over here I can play with while I wait for my new power supply. So yeah, okay, here we go. We're just going to mess around because why the hell not, right? And like always, everything on this Gummy Voice show, and only the Gummy Voice show, unless I specifically state otherwise in another video, is public domain. The Gummy Voice show is public domain. I don't want to claim any ownership to what I'm doing in this. And if you can use some of this to make something awesome, hey, that means there's more awesome stuff in the world. So yeah, so the Gummy Voice show is public domain. We're just gonna mess around and just do a synth jam for no other reason than it's fun. So let's get this all set up here. Getting too hypnotized. Maybe I'll do something a little more trippy tonight then. Get the reading glasses. Let's try something different tonight. Yeah, you know what? I think that's good enough. I was happy with that. Yeah, why go overboard tonight? I spent too much time in the babble anyways, so I don't have as much energy for the jam part. But that was fun. I got, I find the gummies definitely give me, I'm more comfortable with the sort of trippy atmospheric stuff than I am with like the EDM kind of stuff. Kind of like it a little slower and groovier, the way the gummy affects me. Yeah, no, that was fun. I enjoyed that. Why not? Anyways, sorry I didn't have the power supply. I'll find out what's going on with that. Yeah, if you stuck through the entire babble, my God, you know more about Twinks than you ever believed you know ever would. And so I hope you enjoyed it. I enjoyed talking about it. Yeah, so thanks for tuning in. I don't know if it recorded that last bit, so I'm recording it again. But I found the power supply. It was in the other one of these shells. It was just, I'm on a gummy, right? The whole point of this show is to see how the gummies work and present them honestly. So I did find the power supply. It was included. So what does that mean? That means next Gummy Voice show will probably be us using the Akai MPC to make a little groove of some sort. I wanted to try it stoned. I thought would be really good. I just got it. I wanted to try it to see if I could do it. I'm not going to be able to keep my hands off it though until the next Gummy Voice show. So I'm going to be a little familiar with the machine when I show it the next Gummy Voice show. But hey, I figure, if I was able to figure out how to make a pattern on this thing, well, stoned, even though it was a crappy pattern, I should be able to make a pattern on that stoned, right? So we'll see you next Gummy Voice show. Thank you for tuning in to this Gummy Voice show. And boy, if you sat through that entire babble about Twinks, well, good on you. Because man, I didn't think I could keep talking that long on that subject, but I did pause a lot because the gummy kicking in. Anyways, yeah, you now know more about Twinks than you ever thought existed. So see you next Gummy Voice show.